What is worst casing? All right. A lot of politicians they do they fall into worst casing here. So worst casing is inclination to think the enemy holds greater power than they actually do. Politicians, those in governing offices, they're humans. They make mistakes. They overthink things. Some can be quite analytical. All right. Worst casing is inclination to think the enemy holds greater power than they actually do. So if you're a foreign country, right, and you go ahead and you see the United States making deals with, let's say, China, right? Wow, worst casing. You would think, honestly, like, okay, so they're forming an alliance with China. Why are they forming an alliance with China? All right, and then you begin to think, oh, they must be working together to try to go against me. So that's just all goes into the paranoia, insecurity, security dilemma, the dente, worst casing. This is all playing the psychological effect. All right. A lot of politicians do fall into worst casing, and that leads to um, isolation, self development, um, ad, advancement in technology, economic growth. So when you do begin to worst case, you begin to work on your country or whatever you govern at the moment, right? So worst case. Um, let's get right back into the Cold War. Cold War. All right. A moment of insecurities, paranoia, and a lot of worst casing here, right? There was tons of worst casing in the Cold War. But honestly, the United States were just overthinking things. Congress were overthinking things. The Soviet Union, honestly, was falling apart. Their technology was falling behind. But the United States, they kind of worst case everything. Like, they was just like, oh no, they're expanding their power here. They must be growing. Like they were kind of all at on eggshells. There you go. On the edge of things, right? Worst casing every possible scenario that the Soviet Union made. But in reality, the Soviet Union, their economy was going down. Um, there was a lot of citizens who did not support this communist idea, and that's why a lot of immigrants from Russia, from I think East Europe, they come to America. They come to America because it's a better life out here. Yes, Americans here, there's like, oh, we should all have socialism because everything would be even and nice, and what inequality sounds good, right? But then things aren't kind of that swell in a communist country. I can give you a great example. In China, the work, the working environment are like 12 to 16 hours a day. You have to work 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts, right? Here in America, we don't have sweatshops. We have factories, and they have their laws and their protocols. You can't overwork an employee for 12 to 16 hours straight without giving them double the rate, or without giving them a break. Out there in a socialist country, yeah, you don't work, you don't fulfill your job. There are gonna be consequences. So there we go. That's worst casing for you guys. Worst casing is inclination to think the enemy holds greater power than they actually do.